At first, I wondered if Michelin was pulling my leg. There were hundreds of carts and wagons, all jostling for space among indescribable chaos. But there wasn't a car to be seen. Who was I going to sell my tyres to? I set up my office in Bombay. One of my colleagues, Bill, was a jovial, ruddy-faced Englishman who thought that the French all ate frogs for breakfast. No matter how hard I tried to convince him otherwise, he just didn't want to hear it. He lived with his wife in a colonial bungalow run by servant boys. He was never satisfied with them and thought they were sly and thieving. My job was to establish depots across a territory the size of Europe. Bill wished me luck. I bought a few maps and all the necessary bits and bobs, and I was ready to go. I opened the first depot in Delhi. To celebrate the occasion, one of my Muslim clients offered to accompany me to the Grand Mosque. The square was abuzz with activity. It was like a fairground. This was travel from another era. Even though roads were starting to be built, they were not always in the condition you might expect. You were well advised to have good tyres. Michelin, of course. I used publicity cards for advertising my tyres. Everywhere we went, we drew crowds of curious passers-by. I was always struck by the squalor, the noise, and the pungent and contrasting smells, but was given an enthusiastic welcome without fail. Once back in Bombay, I even organised a gymkhana to showcase the quality of our materials. Bill, who loved fast cars, insisted on driving. He went so fast that he ended up head over heels. Luckily, no damage was done.
India at the time had a population of 350 million, mostly Hindus and Muslims. Three leaders represented the claims of the Indian elite in the Indian National Congress. Two Hindus, Gandhi and Nehru, and a Muslim, Ali Jinnah. All three were fighting for India to obtain the status of a dominion, that is, a self-governing state that would remain subject to British sovereignty for its international relations. Gandhi's aim was to achieve this without violence. From his ashram, he launched a campaign of non-cooperation and civil disobedience. During a one-day general strike, he called on his followers to fast, pray, and boycott English-made goods. But violence broke out. To put a stop to the violence, he began a hunger strike and suspended his campaign.
Bill and I were on our way to set up a new depot. It was going to be a long day. The heat was intense and humidity was high. We had been driving for 3 hours, and Bill, grumbling the whole way, had already changed his shirt 3 times. But the road, or rather the lack of a road, gave him the perfect opportunity to cool off. Not that this stopped him complaining, this time about how slowly things were moving. To distract him, I gave him my camera. It's true that the job took so long that we could have enough time to kill a donkey with soft figs, as one of my local provincial expressions would have it. I tried to distract Bill with my unusual metaphor, but without luck. Whenever I could, I would meet Bill in the peace and calm of the Breach Candy Club, which was for Europeans only. I made many friends there, relationships, and more relationships. Michelin was outperforming all its competitors. We would go swimming in unisex bathing costumes, or have a few drinks while describing our servant boys' latest blunders. There were beautiful women, sometimes witty, always elegant. We would exchange glances, and sometimes more. I knew how to charm them. I made them laugh. I was Stan, the little Frenchman, so funny. They loved a clown. And like everyone in the club, they couldn't care less about the political unrest, news of which never made it past the entrance.
In late 1929, as the status of a dominion had not been granted, the Indian National Congress solemnly stated the inalienable right of the Indian people to have freedom. It now demanded total independence. Gandhi launched an action by calling for a strike on the British salt tax. On the 12th of March 1930, he left his ashram at the head of 80 volunteers and was soon joined by thousands of others. After having marched 350 kilometers, he arrived at a beach where he symbolically collected a few salt crystals. He invited Indians across the country to fill containers and evaporate water to collect the salt. Gandhi's arrest did nothing to slow down the movement. Negotiations began. On the 5th of March 1931, the British salt privileges were revoked, and political prisoners who had not committed violence were freed.
To my dear father, having left for India without the slightest illusion, I have not had the opportunity to be disillusioned. The most surprising thing is the presence of people everywhere. You imagine yourself to be in total solitude and then notice a Hindu slowly walking past, apparently aimlessly and with no objective in particular. The characteristics of the Hindus in my region is their hatred towards Muslims, which is reciprocated, a complete unawareness of the passage of time and the ability to sleep whilst being awake. And so while driving through the streets, you may sound the horn as much as you like, there will always be a daydreamer whom you must nudge with your bumper to arouse from his meditation. And even that doesn't prevent accidents. The English amazed me. They love sport, all sport, even the most outrageous, such as the 100-meter sprint dressed in a suit, the egg and spoon race, or the nautical mile using your foot as a paddle. But the most celebrated event was the tiger hunt. "It's very exciting," said Bill. And he offered to take me along on one. I took my courage in both hands and said yes. Even though we were armed, we were still very cautious. You really had to keep your cool. Bill was experienced, however, and didn't miss the mark. That evening I was exhausted. I accompanied him to the club. Bill was keen to describe our exploits, especially his own. All of a sudden, in my sights, a figure suddenly appeared, and Bill's tiger became the furthest thing from my mind. Her name was Pauline. She was from Alsace in eastern France and worked as a reporter for a German magazine. I provided a commentary to Bill's exploits. Well, mostly my own. I blew my own trumpet, it might be said. With her trousers, she was nothing like the elegant English ladies at the club who looked askance at her while she confidently proclaimed her admiration for Gandhi.
Gandhi was invited to London to participate in a round table on India's political future. Dressed in a loincloth and shawl, he arrived in the English capital in September 1931. Opposed to any change to the status quo, Churchill mocked Gandhi, calling him a half-naked fakir, who thought he could parley on equal terms with the representative of the King Emperor. An independent India, went on Churchill, would mean unemployment in England and civil war in India.
Pauline fascinated me. She was the very model of an adventurer. A friend and I helped her organize an expedition for her magazine that would take her to Sikkim, a small independent kingdom next to Tibet. When, lo and behold, she issued a challenge and I suggested I accompany her. It was exactly the kind of invitation I liked, so I took up her proposition. I dealt with my urgent business and temporarily handed the keys to the Michelin kingdom over to Bill. 1 week later, we arrived in Gangtok, the capital of Sikkim. Pauline haggled proficiently over the hiring of mules and porters. As a connoisseur of Oriental business methods, I applauded her skills. She cut a fine figure, while I merely tried to look dignified. I put on a brave face. After several days of walking, we arrived in a monastery. The head lama gave us a warm welcome. With his American cigarettes and cowboy hat, I admit I had trouble believing him when he said he was the brother of the 13th Dalai Lama. We attended sacred dances that were being filmed by a crew of English filmmakers. Pauline took notes. For the occasion, just like the head lama, I dressed up to the nines, which is one of those strange sayings we have. The dances told the story of Yama, the god of the dead, and Showa, the god of the spirit. But the details were as impenetrable to me as the origins of some of our own expressions.